Hey everybody. So I want to talk about the Anaheim Ducks because now their losing streak has hit 12 games. They lost last night to Detroit, and the absolute free fall in the standings for the Ducks has continued. Um, they've now fallen back to 500. They are 19, 19, and 9 on the season, good for 47 points. They have fallen out of a playoff spot and are now 2 points behind the Minnesota Wild for the last spot in the playoffs in the Western Conference. As I said, they've lost 12 games in a row. Granted, some of those were in overtime, so they did get points, or at least a point out of some of those games, but they have not won a game in their last 12. They are 0-6-4 in their last 10 games, and their goal differential on the season has dropped to minus 30. This is really, really bad news for the Anaheim Ducks. As this continues, their chances of making the playoffs continue to decrease day by day. Um, they've they were solidly in a playoff spot before this started, but since this long losing streak, they have really free fallen. They're falling behind other teams now. Teams like Edmonton and Vancouver. Minnesota has jumped back into a playoff spot. It's going to be, Anaheim needs to reverse this and reverse this very, very quickly if they want to make the playoffs this year. They have a bunch of teams that they have to jump over now, and it's just overall not looking good for the Ducks at this point. Um, I talked about the Andrew Cogliano trade. They made that trade to try and send a message to the team that they need to turn this around and turn it around quickly. That no immediate returns on that as they lost last night. But I would not be surprised if we see more trades from Anaheim trying to turn things around, or if Randy Carlyle gets the boot. Whenever you lose a lot of games in a row like this, this is a good chunk of the season now. 12 games out of an 82 game season. I mean, it's not a ton, but when you look at the percentage of the season that's a decent amount of the season. If for you to get no wins in that stretch, that puts a lot of pressure on you to get a lot of wins in the next 12 game stretch to try and even it out. And I don't know if Anaheim has the team that's going to do that. So whenever you have this long losing streak like this, you've got to think about the coach. And we saw Edmonton get a big time boost when they fired Todd McClellan and brought in Ken Hitchcock. At least at first, they immediately after the firing shot up, had a really good stretch and played well, and then kind of fell back. But that usually happens when teams change coaches. Is they get an immediate boost for the next 5 to 10 games. They start to play a lot better. Anaheim could really use that right now. If they could rip off 5 in a row, that would be a really good thing for them to get back into the playoff picture. So maybe firing Carlisle would be a good thing to do right now. Maybe it's not the long-term answer. Maybe Anaheim just flat out isn't a playoff team. When you look at their roster, there are certainly holes in that roster. Maybe they're just not a playoff team. I didn't have Anaheim making the playoffs to start this season, so I will not be surprised if they don't. But given the way that they were in a playoff spot for a good chunk of this year, it's a little bit surprising, or at least for their fans, they don't want to accept a long streak like this in a non-playoff appearance, because they showed that they could be a playoff team at points this season. But right now, it does not look good for the Ducks. The thing that really doesn't, goal differential. If you're a 500 team, but you're right around even in that goal differential, that means you're losing close games, and you have potential there to start winning those close games and maybe take off and make a run. But when your goal differential is minus 30, that does not give me a lot of confidence in that team to make any sort of a run, because they are giving up way more goals than they're scoring. So your chances of ripping off a long winning streak, if you're giving up that many more goals than you're scoring, are not very high. So I think that this could really end Anaheim's season. Again, now they're the good thing for them is that they're only 2 points out of a playoff spot, and the rest of those middle of the road Western Conference teams really aren't that great. Edmonton's not very good. Vancouver shouldn't be anywhere near a playoff spot, but somehow they are, mostly because the rest of the Western Conference isn't that great. You still have Arizona somewhat in it. St. Louis has hung around it. The only hope Anaheim still has is the fact that these other teams that they're near in the standings aren't good. They're not good teams. Minnesota really has not been all that great this year. They're in that last spot with only 49 points. Anaheim's not out of it, because if they can rip off 4 or 5 in a row, they're going to be right back in a wild card spot. I mean, you have Calgary, San Jose, and now Vegas has started to play much better in the Pacific. But after that, the Pacific is trash after San Jose, or after Vegas. When you get by those top 3 teams of Calgary, San Jose, and Vegas, the rest of the Pacific is trash. So Anaheim could sneak into a wild card spot. And in the Central, you really have Winnipeg and Nashville, who are your elite teams, and after that, it's Colorado's first line, and that's it. And then, Minnesota's a mediocre team. Dallas is a mediocre team. There's not much after that. So Anaheim does still have a chance to make the playoffs if they can turn this around. But their goal differential in this long losing streak is really hurting them, and their chances of making the postseason are decreasing by the day. So they have to get back and start winning some games here. But again, we'll see if there's more trades. We'll see if they make a move on changing the coach and see if that does anything. But I don't know. It's just I don't like Anaheim as a playoff team at this point, and I didn't like them as a playoff team to start the season. But they're certainly not out of it. So we'll see what happens. We'll see what other moves they make. But the losing streak has reached 12 games, and that it is desperate. It's time for absolute desperation in Anaheim right now. So with that, like, comment, share, subscribe, follow on social media. Check out offthewallhockey.com. All those links are down in the description below. If you'd like to further support the channel, the links to our Patreon and merchandise store are in the description as well. Keep spreading the word about this channel. Let's keep this thing growing. Thank you very much for watching. Hope you enjoyed the video, and I'll talk to you guys soon.